The Chicago Bulls get one of their most dominant wins of the season last night against the Los Angeles Clippers, and the trade rumors around Yves, Missi, and Zion Williamson are starting to turn again. We're going to talk about it all and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central, Chicago Bears Central, YouTube pages, and podcast. And let's go ahead and get into it, man. The Chicago Bulls get a dominant victory over the Los Angeles Clippers. And this was a game that started off very rocky for the Chicago Bulls. The Clippers get out to an 8-0 lead to start off in that game. And it looks like another game where the Bulls are just going to completely disappoint the Chicago Bulls fans and have and wet the bed, basically. But the Bulls then say, hold on, not yet. And they just respond so well. And this is something that we have to get more and more accustomed to as Chicago Bulls fans, because this team has given us so many reasons to doubt them over the course of the season. But this is a game where, hey, after the Clippers 8-0 run, the Chicago Bulls then respond with an 8-0 run of themselves after going 3-2. But then where the special sauce came is the Bulls finished the second quarter on a 42-17 run. 42-17 run that lasted from the 11-minute mark all the way to the end of the second quarter. And the Bulls just play like a completely different team at that point in time. They're cutting to the basket. They're going to the rim. You know, they're doing all that type of stuff. And it was a completely different offense that we saw from the Bulls. They were forcing turnovers and everything. And it was just overall a really good win for this Bulls team to come out here and do that. And then, I mean, we saw the typical Bulls fashion where the Bulls let the lead slip again. Coming out of the second half, the Clippers go on a 25-10 run that gets the lead down to single digits to 6. And then the Chicago Bulls finish the third quarter with an 18-6 run that puts the lead back up to 19. And the Bulls demoralized the Clippers so much in this game that the Clippers didn't even play their starters in the fourth quarter. They didn't even play their starters in the fourth quarter. The Bulls used their youth, they used their legs, and they use their pace to completely outpace the Los Angeles Clippers team. And that's exactly what you want to see from a Bulls team, is to be able to use their advantages against teams. And that was major in this game. Modest Buzelis had two completely highlight reel dunks. One was a tomahawk. Another one was off a Dalen Terry alley-oop that you love to see. He has 21 points in this game on only 14 shots. You love to see that. And something that I've noticed about this Bulls team, and something that, you know, me and Pat touched on a little bit in yesterday's episode, but what we're starting to see from this Bulls team is the Modest Buzelis and Jalen Smith minutes together are really, really beneficial for the Chicago Bulls. I said it on yesterday's episode. I'll say it again. I'm at the point right now where I personally want to see Jalen Smith stay in the starting lineup for the Chicago Bulls, because I think he has already shown that he offers the Chicago Bulls something that they don't have. I think he's better than Isaac Okoro on both sides of the ball. He gives you more offensively. He gives you more as far as his rim protection. When Modest and Jalen Smith are on the court together, the Bulls are in 300 minutes, so this isn't a small sample size, plus 52 with a plus 11 net rating, an offensive rating of 122, and a defensive rating of 111. 110 is near elite. If you have a defensive rating of 110, it's near elite. Lower numbers, the better number. That is what the Bulls have when Jalen Smith and Modest Buzelis share a basketball court. And I think that's something that Billy Donovan really does need to look to explore a little bit more, especially once Josh Giddey gets back. You get Josh Giddey back, and Giddey's ability, by the way, check out the old school Bulls starter jacket. You know the drip is here. But if you get Josh Giddey in there with Jalen Smith and Modest Buzelis as either lob or alley-oop threats, they both get out and run. They both get out in transition. Modest can hit the three. Jalen can hit the three. I just think that offers you the best lineup. We have some of the best rim protection when they're on the court together as well. The minutes just look really good with those two guys out there on the basketball court together, and that's something that we need to explore more. We're also in games where they play over 20 minutes together, the Bulls are 17-15. And now that's it's not like it's some huge winning percentage, but I'll say this, considering the amount of minutes that they've played together without Josh Giddey, without Coby out there, I do think that you probably need to explore that a little bit more. So that could be something that the Bulls need to. Now, over the years, you guys have probably seen there have been a number of lineups that I have pointed out over the years, different lineups that look like something the Bulls should utilize a little bit more often. And Billy Donovan rarely ever does it. So, that's just a Billyism. But I hope that for a team that says that they want to win basketball games, for a team that says winning is still the priority for this team, I think that you got to explore stuff like this when the data is this loud, right? And I'm not saying basketball needs to be ruled by analytics, because it's not that. But when it's this loud for two players to be on the basketball court together that haven't shared the court a lot with with Josh Giddey, who's having the best season of any Bull, I think that you need to explore it. I think the data is being loud at you for a reason, and you'd be remiss if you do not explore that to some shape, form, or fashion to try to figure out something that's going to help your team. That's just my personal opinion. We get this one from Jarrell, says, yes, keep Jalen at the 4, trade for Missi, and try to get that Hawks pick for Coby. That could turn into a high draft pick. Like, you're not getting that pick for Coby. Like, that's not what they're doing. So you're probably not getting that, but I get where you're getting at. Reginald says, Smith, when his shot is falling, is easy, 12 and 6. We saw stretches of him doing that in India. But no, it's different. It's not just 12 and 6. Like, Jalen Smith's rebounding rate is astronomical as far as the rebounds he gets per minute. I think that, again, I get it what he's done in Indiana before. Phoenix, we didn't really do a lot in Phoenix, but I've seen what he's done in Indiana before. But keep in mind, this is a player that's still extremely young. He hasn't played a lot of NBA minutes. He hasn't started a lot of NBA games. I think that Jalen has improved here because I think there's a refinement as far as the role, right? And that's usually where you see players really start understanding what is asked of them more when you keep them in a certain role. Last season, the role was up and down for Jalen. By the time we got Zach Collins, Jalen was hurt all the time. He didn't play a lot. Now I think you're seeing Jalen really thrive in having guards that can create for him with Trey and Io in transition, those type of things. Like, I think that you're seeing him thrive in that. He hasn't really had a lot of guards that create for him specifically. Of course, yeah, he played with Tyrese Halliburton, but the focus were other players. They never really relied on Jalen's offense a lot. Jalen is refining himself as a player. Everyone who played over 15 minutes had a block. That just shows how good the rim protection could be. I mean, it's one of those things that are contagious, right? And I know sometimes that gets overused in basketball when you're like, oh my God, if you see a player take a charge, it's contagious. And I mean, to a degree, some of that is real. I'm not going to act like that's not legitimate to a degree, but I think when you start seeing a team get into that rhythm where it's like, hey, nobody's coming in here, we're going to try to block everything. Coby White got a block last night. Coby doesn't get a lot of blocks. Over his NBA career, he does not get a lot of blocks. Kevin Huerter at one point was leading the Bulls in blocks until Montes Buzelis finally woke up. Now you see Jalen in the starting lineup, what he's doing with block shots as well. We've been lacking rim protection for so long that I'm not saying that we have necessarily the best rim protection in the world now with those guys out there, but it's a markedly improved area of the Chicago Bulls game when we're able to get that out there. And we just need to do it consistently. So, this team, when they have wins like this, it reminds you of just how good they can be when they play connected, how good they can be when they lock in, how good they can be when they give in the consistent effort that's needed from the Chicago Bulls. All those things work out greatly for this Bulls team. So now we got to see them go out there and do it consistently. And can they turn this into something? The Bulls have the 5th toughest schedule remaining in the NBA. Our opponents have a combined win percentage right now of 52%. That means that we're going to be playing more above 500 teams than not the rest of the way through. If this Bulls team can get healthy, can start winning more games, not in the same fashion. I'm not expecting them to win every game by 28 points, right? But if you can compete more and you have that health, we've seen it. I've talked about it on yesterday's episode. When this version of the Bulls team, which only came together last year after the trade deadline, when they're fully healthy, they went on a 22-5 run and a 5-2 run. They're above 500 when they have those guys fully healthy. That's something to explore. Now, that does not mean that AK shouldn't explore trades. I love the talk of the Yves Missi trade, which we'll talk a little bit about here at the end of the show, because I think that that's a trade that makes sense for the Bulls without giving up a lot of your assets. And that's really what AK really thrives at, especially one-for-one player trades, which I don't know if that's going to be a thing there, but we'll see what the Bulls do here. This team is not done yet, contrary to what some people have you believe, and we'll see. But we're going to also talk about Coby White, who's slowly but surely finally starting to heat up and look like that player that we've needed Coby White to be. We're going to discuss that right after this. But first, I got to talk to you guys about one of our sponsors, and that is Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. And Q's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 9,000 businesses from solo operators to growing teams. Make this year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedon. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. More Locked On Bulls coming up next. All right, Bulls fans. With that said, I want to talk about Coby White. Coby slowly but surely been playing a lot better for the Chicago Bulls. The last 2 games, we've clearly seen Coby White get his three ball falling again, which is always really good for him. Over the last 5 games, keep in mind, the Bulls have gone 3-2 or 4-1 in those 5 games. In the last 5 games, Coby White has scored 19 points, 4.2 rebounds, 4.6 assists. He's shooting the ball 52% from the field, 46% from three-point range. Keep in mind, he started off the season shooting a cold 32% from 3, which is the lowest mark of his NBA career. Coby White is starting to heat up. Now, with that said, I say that to say this. Regardless if you're a guy somebody who wants to see Coby White traded, or you're somebody who wants to see Coby White stay on the Bulls, you should want to see Coby White play at this level. When Coby plays well, that's where things start looking really good for Coby. Right. And that's where things look good for the Chicago Bulls. So even if you want Coby White to be traded, you want him to play better. If you want Coby White to stay, you definitely want him to play better. Coby talked a lot about how he's had no rhythm, or hasn't been able to catch a rhythm yet this year because of, missing the first basically month of the season. Coming back, he suffered another hamstring injury where he missed another couple of weeks. Then he aggravated this calf injury. Where he then missed another few games. Coby really hasn't felt like he's gotten a chance to get rolling. Now it's all on Coby. And I think that that's an important part of this. Coby White needs to be consistent. And I think what we saw in last night's game, for example, was a player that got into rhythm by actually going to the rim. And that's always the special part of Coby's game. Coby is best when he creating or scoring when he's driving. A lot of people like to think of Coby as like this 3-point Ben Gordon shooter, and that's never really been Coby White. He can absolutely get hot from 3, and if Coby White does sign another contract with the Chicago Bulls, he's going to be their all-time 3-point leader probably by the end of next season, barring any health issues. But Coby isn't the type of player that should just stay out of the 3-point line, and nobody needs to recognize that more than Coby White. Nobody needs to recognize that more than Coby White. He needs to stop settling for 3s. It's him. And it's hard to blame anybody for critiquing Coby White when we see it. Like, Coby settles for bad shots far too often. And you see that happen. And you saw times last night where Coby almost fought himself. Like, there were several times in yesterday's game where Coby in transition stopped and looked at the 3 and then was like, no, let me pass it off. Right. But he almost fought that instinct to just take that early 3. The moment Coby stopped taking early in the shot clock 3-pointers, that's when his game started coming to him. That's when he started getting to the free throw line. That's when the rhythm started happening for Coby White. And that's who Coby needs to be as a player. Coby needs to be the one that reminds himself, you're not just a 3-point shooter. You're a scorer, which means that you have to get into rhythm by driving, getting to the rim, taking the easy buckets. It's bad enough we've eliminated the mid-range shot from our shot diet basically completely, but you have to get to the rim. You have to do that. And so we'll see how if Coby and this improved play continues for Coby White. I hope that it does. But as we know about Coby, unfortunately, Coby's one of those players that you just never know. And the thing that's kind of been the biggest kind of thing that stood out about Coby is how much worse he's gotten in the clutch. Coby White, for the last 2 years prior to the season, was one of the best clutch players in the NBA. This season, not so much for Coby White. It hasn't been that so much for Coby. And that's been part of the problem for Coby White. You need to see a Coby that's going to step up in the clutch a little bit more. And we'll see if he can do that, man. You never want to just assume with Coby. We'll see what he can do. But if Coby White starts playing more and more like this and more consistent, especially with us getting Josh Giddey back as well, that's going to be something that benefits the Bulls. But, him and Ayo Dosunmu, man, I can't stress enough about Ayo. Ayo's play this season has been absolutely spectacular, man. Absolutely spectacular. When you look at the way that Ayo Dosunmu, how efficient he is, over 50% from the field, over 40% from three-point range. There was a graphic that was put up on yesterday's episode where Ayo Dosunmu has had the biggest step up in regards of three-point shooting percentage, where his three-point shooting percentage has improved by over 10%. Over 10%. And the reason why that is such a special thing for a Bulls team is because we're a team that likes to spread the ball out, right? We're a team that likes to get everybody involved. We're a team that likes to use our depth. And the reason why that works is that when you have a player like Ayo who's able to perform the way he does off only 10 shots per game, that is what makes the team hum a little bit more, because you're not seeing him have to be ball dominant. You're not seeing Ayo Dosunmu have to take the 15, 16 shots per game as some other players do. Ayo Dosunmu is basically, I'm going to take what is given to me, but I'm going to be hugely efficient in taking that shot, and that's what's going to matter the most for the Chicago Bulls. And, that's what's paid off for this team. We continually see it work out for this team in the growth and that Ayo Dosunmu has had, man. I just can't stress enough how much I love seeing what Ayo has become as a player. Ayo's just been great, man. It's been great and amazing to see Ayo develop in this way, in this manner, and I love seeing it. He's locked in, plus he has a great wingspan. His defense can be elite. Oh, listen, Ayo Dosunmu as a two-way player, Carlos, and this is a great point by Carlos. It's been great. When you have a player like Ayo that can give effort on both sides of the ball, that's why there are going to be some games where Ayo scores maybe 8 or 10 points, right? But because Ayo contributes in so many other places, you saw Ayo last night when the Clippers got on that run and they got the lead down to single digits. Ayo started pushing the break. He started being that one-man fast break. And it's the momentum that Ayo can, because he can force turnovers. He can finish at the rim. He's going to pass it to players. Ayo Dosunmu was he's like a modern day Kirk Heinrich on this team. And I mean that for a couple of different reasons, right? Is that you remember when the Bulls, in that Derrick Rose era, when we brought in Carlos Boozer and Ronnie Brewer and CJ Watson, one of the players we traded to make that happen was Kirk Heinrich. And then 2 years later, we brought Kirk Heinrich back. So for all the Bulls fans that are saying things like, oh, we need to let Ayo go, just remember, if we were to let Ayo Dosunmu go, the moment this Bulls team starts winning consistently, the exact type of player we're going to miss is an Ayo Dosunmu type player. I fully believe that. And I get it. It's not because he's from Chicago. I know for a lot of people that from Chicago thing is a big determining factor in that. I do think that determines why he wants to stay with Chicago, and he's talked about wanting to stay with the Chicago Bulls. But it's more than just being from Chicago. It's the style. It's the fact that we don't have a lot of two-way players on this team. We don't have a lot of players that no matter what you ask them to do, they're going to go out and find a way to do it. If we need Ayo to be a scorer that night, he's going to be a scorer. If we need Ayo to defend one of the best players on the perimeter that night, he's going to take that job and he's going to do that. If we need Ayo to create for Jalen or Modest in transition, Ayo would very gladly do that as well. That's the type of player that you need for Ayo, that you need on a team. You need that on your team. And Ayo's been so great in that, and he's done that his whole entire career coming here for the Bulls. Yes, he had the down sophomore year. Nobody's going to say he didn't have a sophomore slump year, because that second year for Ayo was rough. But I think what we've seen from Io since that second year is him then say, bet, that was rough for me, but now I understand. I understand it now. Shout out to Lethal Shooter. I understand it now. And we've seen an Io that since that season has just gotten better and better and better. And at 25, 26 years old, the fact that Io DeSumo is steadily improving as a player is the exact type of player I would love to bet on. Is the exact type of player I want on my team. Is the exact type of player that I love wearing the Chicago Bulls uniform because he brings some meaning to wearing that jersey. But with that said, let's talk about some other players that could wear the Chicago Bulls jersey, as according to Joe Cowley, there have been talks between the Bulls and Pelicans on Yves, Missi, and Zion Williamson. We're going to talk about that right after this. But before we get into that, I got to talk to you guys about one of our sponsors, and that is TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take your life over. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by trusted local experts start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person and connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. More Locked On Bulls coming up next. All right, y'all. I want to finish on this report by Joe Cowley, and I want to point out something that I feel like a lot of places are missing in the aggregation of this report. So what you guys are seeing is a lot of people reporting that, oh, the Bulls have had trade talks on Zion and Yves, Missi. But what they're leaving out that was also in the article by Joe Cowley is that Zion has no longer been part of those trade talks. So all the things that you've been seeing from diehard Chicago Bulls fan, which is a terrible page, you shouldn't have a platform. What you see by NBA Centel, a funny page. They're meant to be funny, so that's a little bit different. The Zion is off the table, and this is in line with what we heard from Jake Fisher and Brett Siegel last week on that the Pelicans are no longer shopping Trey Murphy. They're no longer shopping Herb Jones. They're no longer shopping Zion Williamson. They are looking at what those guys can do with Jeremiah Fears, with Derek Queen before they really look to trade those guys. So I think that the Pelicans are committed to seeing that version of the roster out probably maybe until next year at the trade deadline. But in that same piece, Yves, Missi, a player that we've talked a lot about over the last basically 3 episodes on Locked On Bulls, is Yves, Missi. And here's what I want to say about the Yves, Missi thing. I can't think of a trade that makes more sense for AK's philosophies. A, you're not giving up a lot of your future assets to get Yves, Missi. B, if Jalen Smith stays as your starting forward, which is something that I personally want, then you can go to Yves, Missi, and Zach Collins being your bigs off the bench. Good. Yves, Missi has been a player that has averaged over a block and a half per game, regardless if he's playing 26 minutes or 18 minutes. I think that's a safe bet there, right? What I don't agree with is some people that think that Yves, Missi is necessarily your starting center of the future. Maybe he is, but the way that I see Yves, Missi is that at minimum, you don't have to worry about your backup center for at least 3 years. He's only on the second year of his rookie scale deal, which is a good part, especially with Zach Collins being a free agent at the end of the year. Zach Collins could command $8 to $10 to $12 million in free agency. If you trade for a player like Yves, Missi now, it makes it a little bit less strenuous on yourself if you have to let Zach Collins walk in the offseason. It also doesn't stop you from going after your center of the future. So whether you draft your center of the future or you go out and get a Walker Kessler or a Nick Claxton, I tell you what, having a big man rotation, just keep in mind, your forward and your center rotation. This is a possible future for the Bulls. Modest at the 3, Jalen Smith at the 4, Noah Essengay in the future to back those guys up. Then you can have Walker Kessler, Nick Claxton as your starting 5 with Yves, Missi being your backup 5. That's a pretty damn good forward rotation there for the Chicago Bulls. We'll see what the ceiling of it is with, but when you have a player that can create like Josh Giddey, having those type of centers that are athletic and get up and down, those are things that work, right? And we'll see, right? Now, also in the Joe Cali article, they mentioned Jordan Poole. And here's the thing. I don't think there's any way that the Chicago Bulls take back the salary of Jordan Poole. This is a front office that didn't take back Harrison Barnes' contract. They would have gotten a first-round pick back had they just taken Harrison Barnes' contract, and they turned that down. So I don't see them taking on DeJounte Murray's money. I don't see AK being willing to take on Jordan Poole's money. I think at this point, AK has worked so hard to get this cap flexibility that he's talked about. I don't think he sacrifices that by taking on those deals, personally. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I would love to be wrong on that, and maybe the Bulls actually get more assets back. But we'll see. I think ultimately, though, if the Bulls do trade for Yves Missi, you're probably looking at it being filler. So maybe like Javon Carter and maybe the Portland pick or one of our own first-round picks. That's probably what you're looking at for Yves Missi. And considering Yves Missi was drafted 21st overall, the Portland pick is lottery protected, meaning at best it can only be 15th. I'm not mad if we give up the Portland pick for Yves Missi. I think that's about the level of player that you're probably expected to get with that Portland pick. Now, the Portland with Golden State and Jimmy Butler suffering the injury, maybe Portland makes the playoffs this year. And a outside of the lottery pick this year is better than any other year because this is a super deep draft. So we'll see what the Bulls do with it. We'll see, right? But I like Yves Missi as a solid backup that gets you the style of center that you want. I'm just not necessarily saying he's your starting center of the future, and I don't know if the Bulls can put all their eggs in that basket, but he's a piece that could help with style. He can help with the future of being your backup center, and I'm not mad at if the Bulls trade for Yves Missi. Again, it's not necessarily a huge needle mover, but it's a solid pickup that I think is something that the Bulls do need. So, we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens. Let's get into, we got a comment from Lexus here. It says, peace, brother Haize. Good win. Still not watching. I'm always checking a scoreboard. We need a new regime and coach. I don't care if we have MJ. We still would be mediocre. Hey, that's funny. We'll see. We'll see what the future does hold. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Bulls. You guys can follow me at CEO Haize. You can follow us collectively at Locked On Bulls. Locked On Bulls is free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube, the Odyssey app, Amazon Fire TV, Roku TV, Fubo TV. Basically, anywhere you want us, you can get it. We'll catch you guys bright and early tomorrow, y'all. Peace.